Joining us now on the News9 Plus show is Ambassador Humayun Kabir, former Bangladesh envoy to the United States. Ambassador Kabir is also a Mukti Jodha, or a freedom fighter from the 1971 war. Ambassador Kabir, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Ambassador Kabir, I want to start by asking you this. Has, Bangladesh seen a political crisis of the magnitude that we saw yesterday? I'm aware, in the last 50 years, we've seen many violent episodes in Bangladesh's history, political history, beginning with the birth in 1971. You've had coups, counter coups, attempted coups. But have we seen anything of the magnitude that we saw yesterday in the past? Give us your thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's a good question. I can tell you that I have seen, I would say, uprisings even before Bangladesh was born. 1968-69, we also had a big uprising, popular uprising that dislodged the then President of Pakistan, General Ayub Khan. Then we saw 1971 Liberation War, and as you have rightly mentioned, the subsequent uprisings. But in my lifetime, I have not seen anything like that. I should say that this was one movement which was completely led by the students. Students from villages, from primary to secondary to high school to university to colleges, everyone joined, and then they were joined by their parents and the community. And interestingly, the political parties actually had to chase the leaders or student leaders to catch up with them. So this is one unique movement, I should say, in terms of its scope, intensity. I have never seen that. And every town, every village, every segments of population got integrated into this. So, and that's why you can see the political parties, I should say, that political parties in Bangladesh like BNP, Zamaat, and others, they have been struggling for last 15 years. They have tried several times to mount, I would say, mount resistance against the earlier government of Sheikh Hasina, but every time they failed. But this time, it was the student community. They actually took the leadership and they just did the miracle.
It's an interesting perspective that you've given us, Ambassador Kabir. There is a school of thought that says that a lot of these protests were foreign funded. There were foreign powers behind this. There was a foreign hand. Western powers were involved. Powers in Asia were involved in all of these protests. But you seem to suggest something completely different. Is this a conspiracy theory, or do you believe that these protests were entirely spontaneous, as you just said?
Spontaneous, homegrown, absolutely led by the youth. And I can tell you where I am right now. I'm speaking from my office, which is in the diplomatic zone. I have, because of my earlier background, I have good contacts with my diplomatic friends. The students had no connection at all. I can guarantee you. And whatever, we can give different colors to that, different interpretations, but I assure you, because I was somehow closely following what was happening, and I can assure you that it was absolutely an indigenous, homegrown, youth-led, and this could be a model. I'm telling you today that this could be the future of the agitation and uprisings in South Asia. And yesterday I said, I don't recall if I said it in your television or other television, that Gokhale, the great Indian leader, he said that what Bengal thinks tomorrow, the whole of India thinks, what Bengal thinks today, the whole of India thinks tomorrow. So I can tell you that this is one unique uprising or popular, I would say, revolution, if I may, that Bangladesh has seen, and that may be the next template for uprising in the days to come against, I should say, an authoritarian leader.
Absolutely. So, Ambassador Kabir, how did Sheikh Hasina misread the ground situation? What happened? I mean, the view from New Delhi is that she was a democratic autocrat for the last 15 years. Good for New Delhi, of course, for what she's done in terms of allaying our fears of Bangladesh becoming a hotbed for insurgents and militant groups and foreign powers in the northeast. But how did she so completely misread this popular opinion on the ground? How did she misread the student unrest, the student anger that you just mentioned?
You know, every power has two good friends. One is hubris, another is sycophants. And I think she was surrounded by both of them. And she taunted the students, tried to give a tag to them, a very bad tag in Bangladeshi context.
Right.
Razakar means that
Razakars,
somebody,
yes.
and that really enraged at the beginning.
Right.
And the entire student community. So, and then she didn't get the message even at that point.
Yes.
Then when the students called a protest, 6 of them were killed. And one you may have seen also, I've seen the cartoons coming out from, sketches and cartoons coming out from one of the martyrs, the first one.
Yes.
He was a young boy, just raising his hand, stood raising his hands, and he was shot at a point blank firing, and he died. And on that day, 6 students died in different universities
Yes.
of the country, and that enraged the students. And then again,
Yes.
they deployed the Chhatra Leaguers. I mean,
Right.
these were like the vigilantes of Awami League.
Yes.
And that enraged another round, really created a huge reaction among the entire student community.
Yes.
And then I think the situation started to snowball and got out of her hand.
Absolutely.
And I think even after that, she was not, she thought that, well, I have suppressed agitations by major political parties during the last 15 years, and the students, what they can do. But
Right.
unfortunately, this time it didn't work.
It didn't work, indeed. And hubris, as you mentioned so correctly, is something that leaders lose sight of. I mean, it causes them to lose sight of the situation on the ground. But Ambassador Kabir, India's Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar just addressed the Parliament a few hours ago, earlier in the day, in fact, where he mentioned that we are deeply concerned about the attacks on minorities in Bangladesh, where their properties have been attacked. Several members of the minority community have been targeted, killed even. In 1971, something very similar happened. Of course, it was the Pakistani military junta that did all of this killing and expelled a number of refugees into India, 7 million at that time. What is being done now by the Bangladesh army to ensure the protection of the minorities of Bangladesh?
Well, thank you again. It is not only that my good friend, Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar is concerned, but I can also tell you that we are concerned likewise. And for the last, since yesterday, I should say, the student leaders have repeatedly been calling that nobody should go and create this kind of problem. But one must also understand the kind of anger, and many of the, I'm not justified, by the way, I should mention, but in many cases, the leaders of Awami League happen to be from the minority communities.
Right.
And they are, they fell victim to some kind of attacks, for example. But having said that, I must also tell you that the military has put out on websites all the list of their officers in charge.
Yes.
With their telephone numbers.
Yes.
In all, in the throughout all the districts, all the upazilas in Bangladesh, anybody who feels threatened, they can call this number and the assistance will come. And in addition to that, the student leaders have formed the volunteers group in different schools, colleges, different localities to protect the minority properties, minority lives, and other stuff. And you will be surprised to know the madrasa students these are all on Facebook. madrasa students in certain areas are protecting the the churches and mandis and other stuff, so, and
Right.
also the minority property. So we are not only concerned, and we believe that this is against the grain of our social values or ethos, because Bangladeshis, we live in peace. We are liberal people, and
Yes.
we have been maintaining the communal harmony. And I can assure you that you mentioned about Pakistan time,
Yes.
but I also may I if, remind you that the context is very different, and
Yes.
here nobody is against the minorities. Everybody is trying to protect the minorities.
Right.
But there are instances where these things have happened, and as I say, they happen because of their connection. But even regardless of that, people are saying that we cannot harm them. Everybody should be protected, and these calls are coming from even the BNP leaders have called for calm and for protection of the interest of the minorities communities. The government is calling that, army has called that, all the young student leaders are calling that, different social leaders are calling that, even the religious Muslim leaders are also calling that they should be protected. You go out and protect
Right.
their
So
lives
it's
and property.
unprecedented. I mean, I don't recall of a similar, situation where an army has actually shared numbers of officers on the ground, young captains, majors, and colonels for, assistance. And I'm only hopeful that it's put to good use and the army, stabilizes the situation. Which brings me to my next question, Ambassador Kabir, on the role of the Bangladesh army. You know, in the past, over the last 50 years or so, the Bangladesh military has captured power. It has ruled. First, you had General Ziaur Rahman and then General H.M. Ershad. Do you see the Bangladesh army taking over power, or do you see it as being a guarantor of the democratic process in Bangladesh, as we saw yesterday? Give us your take on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I would say that as of now, as we are reading the ground reality, the army or the military is working as a helping hand, and they
Right.
have the army chief has been in touch in touch and had met number of political leaders. The leaders have met the president and also the student. He met the student leaders as well. Both of them met the student leaders. So what we are anticipating, last night President has spoken, the army chief had spoken earlier than that, and today we are anticipating that the parliament would be dissolved and an interim government would be formed soon. And by the way, good news is that Professor Yunus,
Yes.
whom everybody knows, he has agreed to head the new interim government. So that would be something very good for us. And my sense is that within a day or two, the interim government will also be formed. And once it is formed, the risk of the military playing a kind of not desirable role,
Right.
that would be eliminated. So my sense as of now is that the army is not in the mood of ruling or coming to the power.
Right.
They are rather in the mode of supporting. And this just I got the news few minutes back. One of the generals who was quite active during the earlier regime, he
Yes.
had just been removed from the armed forces, from the military. So it looks like that those who were politically active, even during the last government, the military is trying to get rid of them. So my conclusion at this point, I cannot predict the future, but
Yes.
at this point, it looks like that military would like to help the continuation of the democratic process and
Right.
support the caretaker
That's
government.
that's heartening news, indeed, Ambassador Kabir. The fact that the military has chosen to stay in the barracks and not, jump in and take over, as is been the case in the past. That's really good news from a South Asian perspective. But take us through what the next steps are after the interim government takes over. What next? Is there a timeline for fresh elections to be called? That's the news that we've been hearing out of Dhaka.
That's what the president has also said last night. I mean, he said that once the interim government is formed, and before that, the parliament has to be dissolved. So once the parliament is dissolved, then it becomes an incumbent, it becomes a responsibility to hold the next election within 3 months' time. That's the constitutional provision. But there is also a demand from the student leaders, what they call is restructure and reform the institutions, and they're asking for justice for the wrongs that have been done during the last few weeks. So these are, I mean, two things are happening. That on the one hand, the constitutional obligation, on the other hand, I mean, the aspirations of the people and the demands of the students who have just changed the regime, if I may put it.
Right.
So we have to make a blend between these two, because there is a strong feeling in Bangladesh that we cannot move forward with the template that we had so far in terms of political management during the last 52 years. So we need to have a different kind of template where people
Right.
could be could participate more actively in the policy making process, where justice could be properly dispensed, and the young people could be integrated more into
Absolutely.
the body politics and so on.
A new template. And before I go, Ambassador Kabir, my last question to you is, do you foresee a return to power at some point, or return to active politics by Sheikh Hasina? Do you see her coming back to Bangladesh and assuming leadership of the Aam Aadmi League?
Well, I don't know. That's their choice. I am not a politician, so I can, and I have no connection with even the political party like Awami League. But my sense is that this time the authoritarian character of the government and the
Yes.
stories that are now coming out has done a huge damage to the reputation and possibly the structure of Awami League. And in that context, I don't know exactly what really holds for the party in the future. And the decision to return is essentially our own choice. I don't have anything to
Right,
add.
absolutely. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, Ambassador Humayun Kabir. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this unfolding crisis within Dhaka, and we can only hope for good times and stability to return to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is a friend of India's, been so for half a century, and we hope it continues. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.